challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
A group of Nigerian lawyers has petitioned the National Assembly to take over the functions of the Benue and Zamfara state houses of assembly. The lawyers, under the aegis of Save Benue and Zamfara coalition, staged a peaceful protest at the National Assembly complex, calling on federal lawmakers to take over the duties of the two state assemblies. The lawyers argued that the Zamfara and Benue houses of assembly are no longer able to perform their constitutional duties due to internal crisis and alleged interference by the governors of both states. In the petition, the lawyers noted that currently in Zamfara state, 10 lawmakers have been suspended since February last year on the instructions of Governor Dauda Lawal for raising alarm over the rising insecurity in the state, adding that in Benue state, the 13 members of the House of Assembly were suspended for allegedly refusing Governor Hyacinth Alia's instruction to suspend the chief judge of the state. Led by Barrister Sambari Benjamin, the lawyers' coalition called on the National Assembly to invoke Section 11, subsection 4 of the Constitution, which allows the Parliament to make laws for the peace, order and good governance of a state when the House of Assembly is unable to perform its functions. The lawyers warned that if the situation is not addressed, it may lead to a state of emergency being declared in the two states, and also expressed concern that the crisis could spread to the National Assembly, potentially threatening its stability. The coalition therefore requested the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio, to urgently intervene and take over the functions of the Benue and Zamfara state houses of assembly to restore democratic rule and stability in the two states. Asims, what do you make of this story? First of all, the Zamfara state, they are alleging that the governor, spearheaded the suspension of 10 members of the House of Assembly for, raising alarm on insecurity in Zamfara state. And by the way, interestingly, this suspension has been on since February 2024. It's over a year.
The question I want to ask is that, can the governor suspend members of the House of Assembly from performing their functions? This is the question that is bothering my mind. I don't know whether I have to go to the moon to go and craft under constitution and bring for that. I cannot find it anywhere where a sitting governor will say, House of Assembly member, another arm of government that is suspending even one member. It is the Speaker's duty under the rules of the House, not the governor. So maybe there's an error, a progress in error going on in this particular decision from that Benue or whatever. Maybe it Zamfara was the Speaker, Zamfara, his Speaker that did that suspension, like we saw in the Natasha case, that the Senate leader or whatever had to suspend. You understand the point? We are even debating that, whether we can even suspend.
The Speaker suspended, but was influenced by the governor.
Political influence by the governor. That is... yes. For me, that is, politics, chikwata. I think is something that we can, grow from. Maybe governor influence, maybe those are insinuations. But even as it is, I have asked that these are things that the executive arm of government should always allow the legislative arm of government to flow. And you find out that even as it is right now, why is it that the Nigerian executive contraption is so powerful and humongous that it's now a behemoth? The president controls or can control the legislature. The president can control the judicature. Likewise, the executive governor can also, or he wants to control the legislature and wants to control the judicature in his state. A good example is this appointment of the CJ in Imo State and some other states that has happened. You find that the NJC will say this is the president, this is the rightful person that should be there. The governor, executive, whatever, will say it is not, you can't do that. It is the person I want that will be there. So what gives these people, these behemothean powers that the governors, or let me use the executive, always stand on top of, Mount Olympus and begin to decide. In fact, they see themselves as Gongon Medusa. That is that if you come before them, you should freeze. That once the convoy comes for the House of Assembly, everybody will freeze and face down. Otherwise, you change to salt or you change to, caste, as the case may be. Why is it like that? Why are they so powerful? Why is the executive arm so powerful? The reasons are this. You find out that even Aristotle once said that, the weakest link in every three arms of government, as the case may be, judicature, etc., as whatever as you have them, has to be, the judicature, because they are between the law and the world. Legislator or legislative arm, has the law to control them. Executive arm has the world to control them. That is why you see what is happening in Nigeria today and elsewhere in the world. Now, coming back to, the issue of taking over the House of Assembly, I hope these young men will not regret it later when they now find out that as they are exacerbating this particular situation in Benue or Zamfara, whatever that state is, where lawyers are now beginning to call for National Assembly. Are you sure the lawyers are not being influenced by even the governor or even somebody somewhere? Because this country today, it has become trade by barter politics that we play. You see young men just come out from here driving flashy cars. They tell you they patronize government, and that is why they are there. So I don't really understand the role of the lawyers there. The MB has to call them to question. What are they the ones to say, okay, the National Assembly to come and take over the, whatever, without having recourse to Section 11 sub 4 and having recourse properly to Section 11 sub 5? 11 sub 5, if any of them is listening to me, succinctly put it. It's not a pedestrian whatever that is not being understood, by even those who are not well schooled in the history of a constitutional, jurisprudence. He said that this particular Section 11 sub 4 cannot come about except that a House of Assembly shall not be deemed to be unable to perform its function so long as the House of Assembly can hold a meeting and transact business. Can't they hold meetings and transact business in Zamfara State, the House of Assembly? Whether they are 10 or 15 or 20, can't they sit down and talk, as the case may be? So it is only when there's a state of emergency declared like in River State now that the National Assembly can, invoke Section 11.4. Let them know. I'm going to let them know with due respect that the court has pulled down this. In 2013, I think during the Amechi administration, where that particular problem happened between the then governor and the House of Assembly, as at that time, I was old enough to know exactly what happened 2013, and you found out that what happened was that a motion was moved in the House of Reps that the National Assembly, particularly the House of Reps, should take over the function of the River State. This River State has been in the news for a very long time. That they should take over, the functions of the legislative arm of the River State House of Assembly because of the fact that there is confusion in the House of Assembly. You remember that was when somebody had to use something to hit somebody's head. You remember that period? That there was confusion, that the assembly was so lobotomized and there was bedlam everywhere. So for a period of time, somebody moved a motion in the House of Reps. And while the House of Reps was about doing that, somebody ran to court and they got an injunction restraining the House of Assembly, saying that what is happening in the Rivers House of Assembly has not occasion why Section 11 sub 4 should be executed or invoked. That you must have a committee reading and recourse also to Section 11 sub 5 that gave the condition precedent for you, National Assembly, House of Reps, whatever as you call yourself, to intervene. So in this case in Zamfara, I don't see any reason for the House of Assembly to intervene now because Section 11 sub 5 has not been desecrated. It is still alive and living. Okay. So please, my colleagues in Zamfara State, I want you to go to your constitution and read it. I don't know whether you are political lawyer, citizen, as case may be, but I'm begging you to go to the constitution and advise your clients very well.
Barrister Sims, now I have interest in the timeline of this suspension of Zamfara State, 10 of the Zamfara State lawmakers. This suspension has been on since February 2024, and I'm aware that judgment has been given with regards to that, suspending elected lawmakers. And to the best of my knowledge, it's 14 days that has been given as the maximum that that suspension should hold. Why have these lawmakers been suspended for over a year, denying their constituencies a representation at the State House of Assembly?
It's been like that because the executive arm of government is so powerful. The executive arm of government is just like Angel Gabriel in heaven, sitting on the right side of God. So they believe that right now they have everything. Because of the powers given to them, because executive governors are like emperors right now in Nigeria. Are you also aware that in Abia State there was a particular order that was given by a lawmaker,
and they refused
to swear him in and inaugurate him? You see that what he got before, he was so reluctant before the speaker could do, because the governor had something against the person. That is to tell you the executive arm, how powerful and ferocious the executive arm of government is. It's a misnomer, it's an aberration, it's anathema, it's shibboleth when you begin to allow, or the governor begin to do what they interfere in the politics and workings, of the House of Assembly or legislative function. Section 456 distinctly, cover the functions of each arm of government. And Baron Stanley Montesquieu, postulation, which became theorized all over the world right now, as the case may be, said separation of powers. Legislative, executive, judicature. There should be no fusion. Now, the moment you begin to fuse power, like what is happening in Zamfara state or any other state at all, where the governor will look at members that were elected, just like himself elected, and I say, I don't like their faces, speaker, suspend them. And speaker suspend them, court give verdict, and the governors do not want to obey. What are we looking at? We are looking at a state of anomy, or anarchy in that particular state. And once it does happen, do not blame the president if anomy and anarchy, begin or preclude or begin to prelude, and a state of emergency is now declared there. Do not blame the president. Now is the time, Mr. Governor of Zamfara, or wherever you are sitting in Benue, wherever the case may be, to please follow the line of the Constitution and allow peace to reign. You cannot determine, who people, chosen people to represent. You cannot sweep them out. It is the right and imprimatur and allow their rights of those who voted them in. They are the ones to recall them. It is not you to suspend. Suspension, even as it is an aberration. How do you now suspend somebody that was voted the same way you were voted in there? Is that democracy? That is plutocracy or mobocracy, as the case may be. Please, I'm so disappointed in some of these illiterate governors we have. And the Behometan, narcissistic, governors who behave like emperors and dictators. It's so sad of you people, please. Let rule of law prevail. Thank you.
Tough challenge, how high the obstacles, we always overcome.
Nigerians need that. It's not about